Summer, and everybody's planning his vacation, trying to get away from the daily routine. But deep in our hearts we know that this summer is not like the summers before. We know that we live in a time of decision. In this time, in our day and age, it will be decided if Europe and the whole West will have a future. And in the moment, this future is looking dark. Waves of illegal immigration are flooding Europe. And while the Arab and the African youth are preparing to cross our borders, our politicians are doing nothing to prevent it. This massive immigration is changing the face of our streets, of our cities, and soon the people who've been living here for thousands of years will be an endangered minority in their own countries. And the country who's suffering the most at the moment is Italy. Once beautiful regions like the Lake of Como are being turned into basically wastelands due to this massive and uncontrolled non-European migration. Or Mrs. Giorgia Meloni, a local politician, puts it, it devastates the culture, it devastates tourism, it devastates security, it devastates everything. Nothing good comes out of it, not even for the immigrants. And that's true. This exodus is stabilizing poverty and chaos in Africa that is creating emigration in the first place. If you invite the whole of Africa, you don't help Africa, you become Africa. But we don't want to become Africa. And that's why we are not planning our vacations, but we're planning to do everything in our power to defend Europe. The immigration, the Islamization, all those problems, it all starts at our borders in the Mediterranean Sea, and it needs to end there. And the problem are those NGOs. They are working as water taxis, ferrying migrants from the Libyan shore to Italy, basically cooperating with human trafficking rings. They help them earn a fortune, and they are luring, as a classical pull factor, migrants in the sea in unfit cockshells, which led to the death of many. Frontex as well as the Libyan Coast Guard are agreeing on the fact that those NGOs are making the situation worse. Italy has even created a strict code of conduct for them a few days ago, but nobody actually goes there, controls and polices them. Well, until now. We have gathered a crew and organized the ship to actually go there in July and guard the borders of Europe. Yesterday the Sea Star left the port of Djibouti and is now heading north. As soon as we arrive there, we will overwatch the NGOs, record all of the radio signals, expose possible communication with the human traffickers and intervene when they're doing something illegal. We will cooperate with the Libyan Coast Guard and inform them every time when an NGO ship tries to enter Libyan waters, and we will try to sink all the abandoned migrant and trafficker ships in order to prevent the human traffickers from getting them back in the night and thus draining their financial resources. And if we get an SOS signal, we'll of course go there, save the people from drowning, but do everything in our power to make sure that they don't go to Europe, but back to Africa where they belong to. Our mission will make the Mediterranean more safe and more secure, because we'll actually try to make a difference between saving people and smuggling them into Europe. And the NGOs hate this idea. They hate the idea of our presence there, because we could crush their carefully created and biased image of the situation in front of the Libyan coast. Those carefully picked, cherry-picked images of young women and children, always taken in an angle that you don't see the nearby Libyan coastline or the human traffickers handing them over like cattle. Without presence.
We talked about generation identitaire on this channel before, in relation to Lauren Southern's boosterism. Supposedly, Lauren Southern was a journalist at some point. She has since transitioned into being a full-blown white identitarian activist, terrorist. She surpassed. Here's what's funny. She in one foul swoop left Rebel Media because they said something offensive about white genocide and white pride, so she couldn't be attached to that anymore. That would kill her brand. And then she hooked up with Martin Sellner and this European movement to defend Europe from darkies invading, and we've touched on this before, but Defend Europe is a standard Nazi campaign it's very vanilla in the most kind of banality of evil kind of way, in that it combines two convenient narratives. Number one, immigrants are a threat, and they are degenerating the culture and muddying the gene pool. And number two, in case you had any compassion left, or if you're stupid enough to not want to embrace your biases, we're going to tell you a story that us blocking rescue ships from fishing desperate war refugees out of the ocean is saving lives, and saving lives from human traffickers. The false compassion narrative, the concern trolling component of Sellner and Southern's, I think Brittany Pettibone is part of this too. Sellner and Southern's narrative about what they're doing in the sea off the coast of Sicily is fatuous, disingenuous, cynical, and most importantly, built on an absurdist plausible deniability. Now, Lauren Southern has been labeled by people like Dave Cullen as being part of the skeptic community, which is absurd because she's a tradcon. There's nothing skeptical about someone who believes in traditional values and champions traditional values. They've fallen down this hole of any anti-SJW is a skeptic now. Like it's completely conflated. Anybody who's anti-left is part of the skeptic community now, apparently, according to the Sargonist contingent. That is a big tent, and all you have to do is hate feminists, and all you have to do is feel like white people are culturally under attack, or national racial sovereignty is under attack in your land, and you can be a skeptic too. You can be irrational too. So Martin Sellner, the first time that I saw Martin Sellner was during that wave of puff pieces when the alt-right popped up, and a series of stupid left-wing publications came up with, who are these glossy Nazis? Who are these beautiful hipster Nazis? It was almost like a lot of these left-wing publications like Mother Jones were doing these articles about people like Sellner and his American analog Richard Spencer, almost in shock that a Nazi could co-opt the left's aesthetic. You know, why do these guys look cool, man? These guys just to be like middle-aged, fat, bald, Confederate flag shirt wearing trailer trash, or in Sellner's case, Euro trash. So after the initial romance with, coiffed Nazis, for a minute, Sellner was sort of losing the narrative on the alt-right to Spencer, at least in North America, until he decided that he was going to become a pirate. That's been legally established. I'm not just pulling that out of thin air. According to international law, one of the things, other than being a terrorist, that the Sea Star crew, including Lauren Southern, Brittany Pettibone, and Martin Sellner, are fucking pirates. And they were pulled by the Coast Guard near Catalonia because the crew of immigrants that they chartered their ship with, some of them were trying to escape Europe, and there were some questions about whether the captain was actually engaged in the people smuggling that the Defend Europe movement has accused NGOs like Doctors Without Borders for as being human traffickers. When you hear this story about we're fighting against human traffickers, look up the list of NGOs that are pulling people out of the Sicilian Sea, and look up exactly what kind of conflict is playing out in Libya right now, and you'll understand why there's an influx of desperate, starving, terrorized people getting on these makeshift rafts for dear life and trying to wash up somewhere. A lot of them have even expressed sentiment that they don't want to go to Europe. When I see conflict refugees being painted as money-hungry welfare whores, I ask people to sort of use their basic empathy. Put yourself in the shoes of a Middle Eastern or North African war refugee. The fabric of your life, the structures of your society have completely collapsed, and your country is being torn apart by terrorism, piracy, civil war. Insert famine, plague, insert tragedy that you would have to literally uproot your life, abandon your home, your culture, your people, your family, your country. These conflict refugees are trying to survive, and they're being forced to survive without a lot of the trappings of a healthy human life. They have been robbed of that. The conflict in Libya has roots in American intervention. It has roots in who we backed during the Gaddafi debacle, who we left in charge after the end of Gaddafi because he threatened certain American economic interests. So it's always fascinating to me when people in the West point their finger at war refugees. Number one, because no welfare check in Europe is more lucrative or compelling than having a normal life in your country, in your home, with your family, with your friends, with your people, in your society where you belong. The people who arrive in Europe are arriving in Europe in a desperate situation. They're arriving penniless, helpless, abandoned, afraid, culturally alienated. And they're being painted as these grubbing, salivating, predatory migrants. They're coming there for white pussy and free goodies. And they're coming there to breed the basic, as though when you're being blasted by bombs, starved, beaten, terrorized, having your hands cut off, all the kind of atrocities that put these people in the ocean, the first thing they're thinking about is, man, I can't wait to get on soil in Italy and get my free health care and get my free apartment. It seems to me like projection from these Westerners of priorities, as if cashing in is some sort of universal global priority. You don't throw yourself in the ocean in a fucking raft that's likely to sink on the mercy of charity organizations because Europe is your dream vacation destination. It's an act of desperation and terror. And these people are being vilified by these glossy Nazi these glossy Nazis and their evil ass Stepford wives. There is a constituency in Western society that is very anti-compassion. And as long as we don't build these societies in the West, these supposedly advanced societies, with the first pillar being compassion, human compassion, not based on nationality, not based on race, not based on cultural analogs, but on universal human rights. There's going to continue to be a space for these Nazi pirates to drown babies in the ocean.